Okay, so this is the academic rep training webinar for 2014-15. Normally I'd have you pick up a pack and have a seat, but obviously you're already seated if you're doing this. The pack will have been emailed out to you, and it contains all the things that you need to know or look at or refer to in the future. You should also have the SurveyMonkey window open with your quiz information. You won't get kind of quiz corrections. It's just something to help you kind of remember as a bit of a mnemonic tool so that you can write things down as you're thinking about them, which should help embed it in your memory. If you want to take separate notes, that's absolutely fine. So the ground rules that we normally set in the training but are also relevant behaviours to live by as an academic rep are to participate as fully as you can in every opportunity to gain or give feedback, to listen to each other and listen to students. And I mean really listen, not just sort of wait for someone to stop talking so you can give your view, but actually genuinely listen to them, even if you disagree with them. And also, if you have questions, to ask rather than holding them in and waiting until someone else can sort of hopefully answer it for you. You need to be really upfront about what you need to know. Your learning objectives for this training session are to understand the purpose of academic representation and your role in the system, to prepare for your student-staff meetings, to understand ways you can increase your influence on teaching and learning as an academic rep. And we'll go through quite a few different ways that you can do that throughout the training. So activity number 1 is for you to do on your own. What we want to talk about here is the core purpose of academic reps and the work that they carry out. So you can pause the webinar here and record your answers in your SurveyMonkey quiz. If you want to take some notes as well to help you remember what you're doing, then that'd be fine. Question number 1 is, what do you think the purpose of academic representation is? Question number 2 is, what do you think reps have the power to do in their role? And question number 3 is, do you think you work in a team or alone? If you really wanted to be a superstar, you could identify some team members that you think you might work with. If you think you work alone, you could explain why you think that's the case. So the next questions that we like to look at, and this is about the sort of things you should be asking and thinking about when you're representing students, is what works and what doesn't. So I want you to pause and record your answers in your quiz form. I'm going to get you to brainstorm a bit. Something that you can do to help you start thinking as a rep is identify what works well in your classes and also what doesn't work well. A further question you can ask is, do all lecturers do the things the same way? Do you think that they should? And if you do, why? And if you don't, why? So pause, have a think of these questions, and give us your answer in the SurveyMonkey quiz. Okay, carrying on. We want to look at some of the important issues that you need to understand. Diversity means difference, effectively, and what we've got is a lot of diverse learners at the University of Aberdeen. In addition to ethnically and racially diverse student body, we've got a diverse set of nationalities studying at the university. We've got a lot of gender diversity, we've got a lot of people of different sexual orientations, a lot of people from different economic and social backgrounds. All of these things are really important. We also have diversity of ability and diversity of experience with everything from learning difficulties and disabilities to also barriers that are sometimes in place that people might not realize for students with disabilities. And we can actually find ways to remove some of those barriers as reps. So when you're thinking about diversity in your student population, you need to think about the things that you could see and the things that you might not see, that people might not explicitly tell you about, that you could consider when you're thinking about how to be a good rep. So the synopsis here is that people learn best in different ways. No one person thinks, learns, or wants to be taught in the same way. And the question I want you to think about is, how do we help create a university and classroom experience that more or less works for everyone? And there's some other things you could think about here. What do we mean when we say everyone? And another question that you could think about here is, should we try to customize education for each person? Go ahead and pause and record your thoughts in the quiz form, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. So the next thing you need to understand is that as a rep, you're important. The university and AUSA, that's the Student Association, both value and importantly act on the things that students say would improve their experiences. And you need to understand the university is not run as one big central organization. They're not quite run like a company in the way that things are very top down. A direction is set at the top via common policies and procedures. And one of those things is requiring the schools to have and regularly meet with reps like you, but the schools would probably do some of that anyway. The important thing to understand is that schools vary in the way that they approach representation and the way they approach student feedback. And the bottom line is, as though in principle they do value what you have to say and do want to act on it, they may act on it in different ways, and they may perceive what you say differently depending on how the courses and programs are run. So you need to think, especially if you're a rep for different courses in different departments or different programs in different departments. For example, if you're a joint honours student, that things will vary from school to school and from department to discipline. That doesn't mean that you don't have the right to speak up on issues that are important to you as a student, and it also doesn't mean that just because one department deals with something differently, that means that they're not dealing with it at all. But you do need to make sure that your thoughts and feelings about the course and your classmates' thoughts and feelings about the course and program that they're on is being heard and responded to in a way that makes people feel their input is valued. So the thing you need to understand about representation in the university, at the school level or the department level, you've got your academic reps, that's you guys, and you've also got your school conveners. Each school has one, and postgraduate students also have a postgraduate college rep. So the graduate school has a PG rep, and there's also one PGR rep for the entire university, just in case we only get PGT students in those rep places. At the college level or the graduate school level, we've got as well the school conveners and the postgraduate college conveners sit at this level on teaching and learning meetings. Also, the president for education, that's Rob Henthorne, and the vice president for education, that's Liam Fuller, who's also one of our student trainers. They sit at college level meetings sometimes, and they also help support the internal teaching review process and DALIA, which we'll get to in a little bit. So they're kind of a middle level of representation. Finally, at the highest university level, we're talking about University Senate here, or the University Committee for Teaching and Learning, which is where major policy decisions are made about how the university will approach things and how it sets out its beliefs and values about how education should be conducted. The school conveners and college conveners for postgrads, and also Rob and Liam all sit on the University Senate. Rob also sits at UCTL, which is fed by the college committees, the school heads of school meeting, and everything else. So that's all kind of interlinked. All of you guys, reps and conveners, as well as Rob and Liam, your president and vice president, are all represented within AUSA, and you all have a very influential voice. So the way the AUSA connects to the university's governance is that our Students' Association Council consists of all the people on our committees, which includes the Education Committee, which is made up of these school and postgraduate conveners. So if there's something that you want us to be addressing, you can take it through a number of different routes. You don't always have to take it through the university. Sometimes you can take it to us, and Rob or Liam can go directly to the top and lobby for that cause. If it's something to be dealt with at school level, simultaneously, Rob and Liam can help your school conveners and your postgraduate conveners intervene on issues that are specific to students in a particular area of study. So there's a lot of different ways that reps can influence throughout the university, but it helps if you understand the structure and the kind of level at which everybody is represented. A couple of other things. Quality enhancement is just a fancy title for always improving things. It describes the formal review of courses and programs into which students have input. Reps are considered a form of student engagement and quality enhancement. And I was going to ask you what another formal example of student engagement and quality enhancement is. And I would have already mentioned this, but I've actually realized I changed the slides. So the other example of student engaging in quality enhancement is SCEF, student course evaluation forms. These happen once per term, and if you've been here for more than a year, then you'll know you get a dozen emails about them every term telling you to fill them in. They're actually really, really important. The school takes them so seriously, and when they don't get enough of a response rate on them, it actually creates big problems for them. They need to know what students think of a course, and they use that qualitative and quantitative ranking data to figure out what they should do about their courses year on year. So the more students fill them in with constructive, useful feedback, the better the courses will be, and the better students will think of the school and the courses because they'll see their concerns being responded to quickly. Quality assurance is the other side of this kind of coin about quality. It's a fancy name for making sure things are what they seem. It's a formal process. It's a formal thing that is guided by the QAA, which is an external body. And the university actually is given its ability to give degrees and everything based on its success or failure at quality assurance processes. So these are really important, and actually students are heavily involved in these. There's two major processes at the university for checking that everything that should be done is being done when it comes to teaching and learning and broader administration. One is internal teaching reviews, and you may find yourself asked to be part of a panel for an internal teaching review this year. They go on a constant basis, a rolling basis. So sometimes conveners will be asked to help conduct an ITR in a different college or school, and sometimes reps in the college or school having the ITR will be asked to feed their views into the panel. So that's something that you can do. It's kind of a plus added bonus you can get involved in as a rep. The other is the enhancement-led institutional review, which only happens every few years, and we've actually just undergone one. And actually, the changes to the rep system that you're now seeing, if you're a final year student, undergraduate, you will have seen some changes to the rep system, and whether they've worked well for you or not, we'd like to know. But those were actually alluded to in the university's ILEA documentation. So this is something we've collaborated on at all different levels, and that's something that reps have fed into over the last 3 years. So that's one further example of how reps actually influence the university's accreditation and ability to continue as an institution. Your year ahead, I'm going to talk about what you'll actually be doing day to day. And if you could, at the end of this slide, I'd like you to pause and note any further methods of engagement that you can think of. So there's a few things that you do throughout the year. The most important thing from the side of the schools, so this is what the school staff, the admins, your school secretary, your lecturers, your tutors all want you to do. You absolutely have to attend your student staff liaison committee meeting. They happen only once a term. They're the official meeting that you go to, and they're really, really important. In-class contact with students you should be having every week, and you can speak to people face-to-face, but you can also email them. We'll get onto that in a bit. You can Facebook people. A lot of courses or programs set up a Facebook group for easier communication. Sometimes reps have had success with surveys on SurveyMonkey, sometimes not. It really depends on the course. The other thing is your SCEF forms. You can fill them in once per term, and what you should be doing as a rep is strongly encouraging people to fill them in. It's your job to explain to students exactly how important those things are. If you don't take it seriously, nobody else will. And it's really important that you influence that process positively. Encourage people to give constructive and useful feedback. The other thing is the ITRs and the LEA that I mentioned, and those are really only once every few years for schools and for the university. So unless you get asked to do it, then I wouldn't worry about that. If you pause for a minute and note down any other times and places or ways to engage students on academic issues or examples of issues you can engage them on, please have a moment to record those in your SurveyMonkey or in your notebook, and we'll move on. So what reps do, we'll break this into major responsibilities, and then later on we'll talk about major tasks. We've just gone over some of the key tasks and their frequency. What reps do, you're responsible for attending SSLC meetings on behalf of your cohort, and the school will expect you to do that. And if you don't do that, that actually undermines everybody, so you really need to go. You also need to communicate about the meetings, what will happen and what did happen. So if you get the agenda, you should be talking about it with your classmates, and after you go, you should tell them what you said. You should also be attending rep councils as needed and sharing some successes or issues or anything else, how things are going with AUSA. When you give feedback, this is about what you're expected to do and how you're expected to do it at the student staff meetings and on SCEF. It needs to be accurate, balanced, constructive, and depersonalized. Accuracy is about how specific you are. You need to be concrete and factual. Balancing is about making sure that you're not just kind of pooing on everybody from above, but you're actually being really kind and respectful and giving the positive along with the negative. Kind of a compliment sandwich, if you will. Lecturers are people too, and they do get their feelings hurt if you're too harsh. Constructive is about solutions to issues that you identify. You need to bring a solution, and also depersonalizing it, not making it about the person, but about the behavior or the thing that you like them to change. They can't control their looks or their disability or whether they spit on people in the front row or their accent, but perhaps there are ways around that that could be managed. How reps should do it. So you should talk to students, obviously, asking specific questions about the course. See the handout that I've attached to the email. Sending apologies for meetings missed is a really big one. Sending agenda items for meetings also is a really big one. And participating actively in meetings, whether you get feedback or not. Representation is a constant cycle of following up, identifying issues, and for offering solutions. Communicating well is all about how you address people over email in particular. You should always have a good salutation. You should always think about where to raise issues privately or in the meeting, when to escalate and where to escalate to, and also email actions, copying and blind copying all have an impact, and you need to be aware of what those mean. Finally, this is who to contact about your role. Me for any questions about your role, school admin for any questions about your meetings, and questions about issues, always go to lecturer in the first instance. What's coming up next is our Student Leadership Conference. Star Award signups close on the 10th of October, but if you're really nice to Eloise, she might let you in. And don't forget your Saltire Award hours can also be tracked online. Thanks very much. Give us your feedback and let us know how it's going.